Let's first talk about the fact that we are missing an airman right now. There were now 2 planes that have been shot down by Iran. 1 airman was rescued. The other one from the A-10 has been rescued. There's 1 airman not accounted for right now who is likely in Iran.
That's correct, yes. And it's something we should all be thinking about. And we have an excellent search and rescue operation underway. I mean, I will say, and I completely agree with everything you just said. I mean, that was a perfect summary of the incoherence of Trump's approach. Important to remember that incoherence is central to Trump's approach on just about everything, which is why this is problematic beyond just the war in Iran. But we're seeing the real cost. And we've got an airman behind enemy lines trying to survive and trying to be rescued. And we should all think about him. We should also think about the 13 service members who have been killed and the hundreds who have been wounded. So yes, that search is front of mind right now on the war in Iran. But there are many other problems as you laid them out.
Yeah, and you talked to my colleague Antonia Hilton about one of them last night. I was listening to the conversation. I just want to play a little of that for our audience.
All Iran has to do is survive and be able to threaten us. And that's what they did today. Look, I mean, to some degree, Secretary Hegseth isn't wrong in terms of the amount of damage that we've done to Iran. What he's wrong about is the strategic impact of that damage. It does not take much for Iran to be able to inflict pain on us in the region.
This is a really important point. The administration talks about the fact that they've hit 11,000 targets in Iran. That reminds me of body counts, right? It's you can pile up numbers and they can sound impressive, but we don't actually understand where this leads. Are there 110,000 targets in Iran that are going to be hit? Like, I just don't understand. Nothing leads us to any conclusion that this is going to end, except that Donald Trump says it may end in 2 weeks, but that he'll feel it in his bones and he'll know, and that the Strait of Hormuz will open up naturally. None of this is a strategy.
Let's try to connect 2 points here. First of all, everything we're talking about here is stuff we've been talking about for 15 years. Iran has been a problem for a while as their nuclear program expanded, as their ballistic missile program expanded, as proxy groups like Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis gained strength. Roughly from 2010 forward, every administration, every Secretary of Defense, every national security advisor has looked at this problem. And it is a problem. And we've considered military action. And the reason people have chosen not to do military action is because we didn't think it would be successful. Hegseth and Trump kind of think, well, the only reason we ever don't do military action is because we don't have the guts. We're not strong enough. No, we actually think about this stuff in terms of consequences. Consequences is not something Donald Trump thinks about. He acts. And the consequences were very clear from the start that, first of all, Iran, massive country, 90 million plus people, lots of territory, hard to get everything that they have and hard to stop them from being a threat. And they're right in the middle of a very important part of the world. They can threaten the Strait of Hormuz. They can threaten their allies very easily. If we were to attack, we would not weaken them significantly, and we would increase the violence that they would send out into the region. So therefore, we better come up with a better way to deter and contain them. So that was all right there on this particular problem. But understand that this goes beyond Iran. This is the problem, to my mind, with the Trump presidency. First of all, there's Trump, who is just, I think those descriptions are great. I love the quote, when you don't know where you're going, you're always on the right path. That fairly describes Trump's approach to just about everything. He just goes out there and he says stuff. And for some reason, we've decided that because some people find him vaguely entertaining, we're going to put him back in the White House. There's a lot to be said about that, which I'll leave alone for the moment. But Trump has always been Trump. Every time I hear people say, oh, people in the White House around him are concerned because he's doing this, he's doing that. I mean, go back to the mid-'80s. This is who the guy is, all right? And sure as hell we knew it after 2020. So there's that, and then there's the second part of it, which is how, and this is where Mike Johnson and the Republicans in Congress are the villains in this part of it, unchecked power. It is what Trump wants. It is what he has desired. It's what Hegseth wants. It's why he keeps firing people who disagree with him. Unchecked power leads to this type of stupid decision, particularly when the person with the unchecked power is not the sharpest tool in the shed and isn't particularly focused on the interest of the American people. He is more focused on his own narcissistic interests. When you give unchecked power to anyone, it's dangerous. When you give it to this guy, it's beyond dangerous. And we are experiencing that in this war right now.
What this conversation ultimately reveals is not just the chaos of a single conflict, but a deeper failure in how power is exercised and justified. When a war begins to feel directionless, it's rarely because the battlefield is unclear. It's because leadership is. The most striking element here is the absence of strategy masked by the illusion of action. Numbers are thrown around, targets hit, assets destroyed, but without context, they become meaningless. Counting strikes is not the same as achieving outcomes. It creates the appearance of progress while avoiding the harder question, what has actually changed? Meanwhile, the reality refuses to stay hidden. A missing airman behind enemy lines is not just a statistic. It is a stark reminder that war is not a talking point. It carries human stakes that cannot be brushed aside with confident rhetoric. When leaders speak in broad, triumphant terms while families wait for answers, the disconnect becomes impossible to ignore. There is also a pattern emerging that goes beyond this conflict. Decision-making appears impulsive, reactive, and driven more by instinct than by planning. That might create short-term momentum, but it rarely produces long-term stability. In fact, it often leads to escalation without direction, where each move demands another, deeper commitment. Perhaps the most concerning aspect is the normalization of this approach. When inconsistency and exaggeration become expected, accountability starts to erode. The public is left trying to piece together reality from conflicting signals, while institutions that are meant to provide balance seem sidelined or weakened. And then there's the economic and global ripple effect. Rising costs, regional instability, and strained alliances are not separate issues. They are directly tied to decisions made in moments like this. War does not exist in isolation. It reshapes everything around it. What's missing in all of this is restraint and clarity, not weakness, but discipline, the kind that recognizes when force is effective and when it is simply noise. Because without a clear objective, even overwhelming power can become directionless. In the end, the question is not whether action is being taken. Clearly it is. The question is whether that action is leading anywhere meaningful or simply creating the illusion of control in a situation that is steadily slipping beyond it.